Welcome in. It is day 63, and you're speaking with the Meeples Champion. Today, we're jumping back into our Kickstarter games. And today's game is one that I was super excited when I got it in. Specifically because the theme. The theme was so different than other themes I'd seen. That game is Plunderbund. Now, surprisingly, compared to when this first came out to me via Kickstarter, this game actually has made it into stores. I didn't think it would, and not because the game's not good, just because it's so obscure. It's so different in how it's designed, in how it's themed, in everything. I just didn't think this would end up making it to stores, but it did. The concept of the game is pretty straightforward. Theme is you're dealing with mob type setups. It's the mafia, but with orcs and wizards, and you're essentially in a fantasy game playing it out as if they are in a world of fantasy exists with the mob. It's pretty cool. I like that idea. It was a nice little mix, and I really didn't have many mob games in my collection, and it wasn't that I didn't like that idea, but it's not my favorite theme, and that theme doesn't usually accompany my type of mechanics. But this one was a great setup where it brought in my favorite type of theme of fantasy, mixed it with the mob in a different way, and gave me all my mechanics I like. So how does the game play? Well, the idea is there's this giant city that we're all in, and we're trying to essentially, in 4 seasons, score as many points as we can. We're doing that by going up on these 4 tracks on the side, which slowly helps you as you're getting it to extend how many cards you're allowed to hold in your hand. It gives you more victory points on one of the tracks. One of the tracks helps you to get more of your supply in, so that you're able to, at the beginning of each round, have more actual boxes to start the round. And the other one helps you a little bit in that area, but it also helps you with a little bit more control for who goes first and who does things first. Then out on the city, as you're placing your guys out, the idea is you want to go in and you want to drop your worker meeples, and then you have guys who are really more your brutes, your muscle, and they have bats. And you want to drop these guys into the city, and your concept you're going for is, okay, I'm going to put a guy in a spot, and now that spot, when it's time to pay out, my guy potentially is going to be grabbing an item off of it. You're, during the game, going to have to pull these different little cardboard pieces out of a bag, and they're going to give you a number and a color. The number correlates to where in the city it goes, and the color correlates to which of the color tracks it's going to match up with. And when it's time to go into the end of the year round phase, depending on total number of meeples in an area, you'll go, okay, we've got like 4 different meeples in this area. We're going to go by the colors. So you'll look at it and you'll go, okay, well, we start with our green track, and blue, you're the lead on the green track, so do you want that spot? And if you do, then it means you're going to, for your person, remove that green token, and you're going to place one of your supply on it, showing that you were able to basically pay the supply there. And then you're going to move on. Is there another green token? You have priority first. Do you not want it, or do you no longer have anybody? Now who's next priority that's on the spot? And one by one, you pay it off this way. When you get to the point where somebody is out of all of their goods, they can no longer take anything. So you got to be really strategic, because if you notice, hey, yellow's winning, and yellow's really in like the 14, 15, 16, 17 area, and I'm competing with them there, but if I waste all my supply up here, yellow's going to just take it, because nobody's really competing with them anymore. So you may want to turn down taking goods early so that you can take them late and compete with yellow, compared to, I'm blue and I'm messing with red and I'm messing with white and I'm messing with black, and the 4 of us are in a battle up here, but yellow has committed to a spot that they know will forget about them. There's also your brutes, the guys with the bats. They get first priority. It doesn't matter about your track. Only 1 brute can be on a spot, and when they're there, they just can pick anything they want and take it, because they by force have stolen it. So you have your brute taking stuff. They obviously they also need to have something to have for that supply. Actually, they don't, so ignore that comment. They do not need anything for that. They're stealing it, compared to everybody else has to pay for it. And at the end of that round, you then, based on everything that you had, you get your victory points. You're going to get 2 points for everything that your brutes took. You're going to get 1 point for everything everybody else took. And then you go back in and you shuffle up. You reset things on the board. You're going to keep your people out there. So that's going to help because as things re-enter the board, you might already be on a spot that's getting packed, or you might be on a spot that doesn't have anything, but you're hoping that you can move people around. You're also going to have to pay attention for the end of the game, because when the game end comes, you're going to run into a upgrade situation of, all right, you've gotten all your regular points, but what about your now next level points, which is there are multiple sections of the city, and you're going to see how much control you have in each area. So you're going to count up all the meeples you own, all your opponent's meeples, and whoever has the most is going to take that city. In the case of ties, then you have to do tie breakdowns. But you have a first, a second, and a third player payout. So it's not giant. That's not wicked important. What's important, though, is if you've managed to somehow trick your opponents and nobody realizes that you've managed to go and take first place on, say, 2 or 3 areas, and then you're doing well enough to get, second or third in the other ones, you may not crush anybody, but you might end up being like a 10-point favorite from all of it. It's not a huge shift in points there, but people who don't pay attention end up getting nothing, and that's where all of a sudden a leader in the game can go, wow, I thought I was running away with it, and then I got no points because I didn't do anything for area control. I was just trying to get my regular points. Everybody else was paying attention, and now I've fallen out a bit. So it's an important part to pay attention to. And then there's also card upgrades, and that's a whole other section. You start with your basic deck, and every round you're going to upgrade. The upgrades are, you have 3 cards that are always there. There are 4 copies of each. So you get to upgrade at the end of each round. There are 3 upgrade sections, and you'll get 2 additional cards in each upgrade. This is interesting because when it comes to those 3 cards, well, if somebody, what if crazily enough, I took 2 and somebody else took 2 in the first round, well, it's out. So those 3 cards tend to last through most of the game, but they may not. Then you also put 6 additional cards up top, and those cards are going to be a shuffled up deck of a bunch of big upgrades. And these have a couple basic cards that are going to do something better than what you had, but the other ones are synergy cards. Synergy cards are very important because the way they work is, by themselves, they're just basic. Okay, I'm going to use this one. It's going to move me up 2 on yellow. Great. Better than the one I had before, which was a 1 on yellow, but it's just 2. But if you have the ability to pull out that card and the original card at the same time, it synergizes, meaning you're only going to have to pay for one of those 2 cards. So if it might have cost you having to get basically 2 negatives to get used of 2 cards, now you're only getting 1. What are negatives? That's the other part that's interesting to this game. It's a deck builder, but it's a weird deck builder. It's the reason I got it. Yes, you have 3 rounds to add 2 cards. There are 6 cards added to your deck positively. That's great. So, but that's not a big deck builder. When you think about a game and you go, you're going to get 6 additional cards to your 8-card starting deck before the end of the game. You're going to go, all right, it's not really a deck builder. Would you really consider it? By definition, I would, but it's not that great of a deck builder in that respect. The way it's different is, every time you use a card comes with a cost. Sometimes it'll say, hey, you can do a very basic thing, get a point for nothing. Okay. But it might also say, hey, move up 1 on the yellow track. But you're going to have to draw one of the cards. There's a deck of cards. They're all the exact same. And the idea of the cards is this. They are worth a negative point for every card in your deck at the end of the game. The only way to remove those cards is, when you draw cards, if those are drawn into your hand, you discard them back into the pile they came from. But it means you've lost additional card options for future turns. So if you normally start the game with 5 cards, all of a sudden by your 3rd time that you're drawing, you might draw and be like, shoot, I drew 3 of these. I only have 2 cards to use this game. It's not as good. So the way that the game counters it to make sure you're not in major trouble is, you can draw, say, 4 of those. And when you do, if you draw 4 or 5 in a turn, you are allowed to immediately go through your entire deck, whether it's your hand, the deck itself, or the discard pile. Pick one of your cards, and you can knock it out of the game. And the reason that that's important is 1, it helps free up your deck. Maybe you're not focusing on yellow, so you want to get rid of the yellow card. You're like, I don't care. Or when you get to a point in the game where you've maxed out a track, every time that you draw one of those cards, you're allowed to discard it for a point. And if by chance you've maxed it out already, you could use this ability to jump in, discard one of those cards that you knew you weren't getting back to, and you're going to get a point for that. So there are ways to do this very quickly, and it's very interesting. All right, we've gone pretty far into this game for explanation. It's already 10 minutes. Let's try and give a little bit of our countdown here. What do we think of this game? Art. The art is really good. I love this box. It sells me on wanting to play this game. You look at the board, you look at the cards, you look at the player boards. They're really nice. It's good coloring, it's good design, it sells the theme. Thumbs up on the art. Components. You're dealing with your large board. You're dealing with your meeples that are wood. You're dealing with your pieces of your own blocks, as well as all of the goods, which are all little wooden cubes. Really good quality. Your cards, great quality. Nice little shine to them. You know, you're putting out things on the board that are made of cardboard. They're really well designed. It didn't rip on me. There's no like tears in it. Big thumbs up on components. The price. I looked it up. I was a little surprised. I thought it'd be more, but it was only $60. This game comes with a lot in the box. There's a mega game in here. And there's a lot to do. And for $60, it is worth it for me. I think expert and experienced players will love this game. I think beginner players can enjoy it. It will be a little tiring. I admit, I did a beginner players with this once. We got through the game, but it was pretty exhausting. But I think it was more so that it was too many beginners in one game, not as much that individually those people couldn't learn it and enjoy it. Had it not been for the slowdown of having me with 4 beginners, I think if it had been 3 beginners, maybe, but I think like 1 or 2 in a game with a couple experienced people would work well. I'm going to give it a thumbs up on that price. And that jumps right back into that difficulty question of how difficult is it? I don't think it's that difficult. There's a lot of options and there's a lot to do, but I feel like you have a pretty generic idea. You draw your hand, you see what your options are, you decide. Well, there's a lot to do. You can only decide on the cards you've drawn, and that's going to help you make your decisions. So thumbs up on the difficulty as well. Replayability. I've played this game a bunch. I do think that the game has an issue where there's roughly 4 rounds, and in those rounds, it takes you through the second round to really have an idea what your strategy is. There is a small expansion. It's just a little deck of cards that you get to start the game, and I feel that that solved it and shifted it back. So now you can figure out your strategy at the end of round 1, and that's a big deal. It gets it 25% faster. So I even ignoring those in the basic game, I think that the replayability is there. It just needs to have the right group. And I think that this is the type of game that is going to only be played 2 or 3 times a year. But for its size, for its price, I think 2 or 3 times a year is acceptable. Thumbs up. Your keys to victory? There are a lot. Do you want to go all in on the yellow track, the purple track? Do you want to go in on the blue track, on the red track? Are you going to try and balance them out? Are you working on the card balance? Are you trying to not take as many of the negative cards because you're going to just really work on only direct victory points? Are you going to try to get your brutes out there? Are you going to work more on your meeples? There's no definite way that's going to work, and there's a lot of options, and I find it has to be a good mix of 3 or 4 to really compete. It's a big thumbs up there. And finally, unique. Unique. I mean, there's no game I've ever seen like this. That's a good and a bad thing. It's good because if you're going to get this game, it's going to stand alone in your collection. It's not going to have anything that you're going to have to really think about in comparison to it. It's bad because it's unique in a way that I think a lot of people aren't interested in. I like the idea of this alternate deck builder where it's bad to get the cards in your deck, but a lot of people don't love that. I like the idea of, all right, well, you kind of don't have choice on the track attack because it's up to what you've pulled for your cards. At the same time, I think that it's cool that you have the option to just ignore a track and try to decrease what you're getting. I think it's a thumbs up on unique, but by no means does that mean that this game is perfect. Overall, what do I think? I think it's a great game. I think that if you have a chance to try it, give it a try. But this is not a must-own. As much as I love the game, I know I don't play it as often as I would like to, and I know that that's because there's other games I prefer to it. It's not my top 10. It's probably not my top 20. But when I look at my shelves, it's a game that grabs my eye, and I want to get it back out there. And I always think, do I like it more than I do? I don't hate it, and I don't love it. It's right in that middle area. I enjoy the game, and I want to get it to my table. So I think you should try it. But don't get overexcited. Realize where this game's going to fall for you. Well, that's just my opinion. You're going to have to try it out for yourself to figure out what your opinion is. This has been day 63. We've been speaking about Plunderbund, and you've been speaking to the Meeples Champion. Like, share, subscribe, and check down below in the description where I'll be adding an Amazon link, so if you're interested, you could pick this up for yourself. Until next time, check back in tomorrow.